I'll start formally then. My name's Steve Warman. I'm the customer support manager at Clinical Skills. So my job is to do what we're doing today, to do training on how to use the system, and also to deal with any issues as they come up in the future as you use Clinical Skills. Now, I always say that we're very happy to talk to you if you have any issues on the system. It's not like this is the one and all training. You're quite happy to sort of contact us if you find you're trying to do something and you're having particular problems, or you've got any other questions, or other people would like training, then by all means just contact us at info@Clinical Skills, and we're very happy just to jump on a call with you, or go over things online if that helps. Okay, so what I will do without further ado, which doesn't make any sense really, but there we go. I will share my screen. Any questions as we go through, as I said, raise your thumb, put it in the chat, or throw something at the screen and I'll probably notice. So, okay, I will share my screen. And okay, can you see the screen there? Okay, now the reason I'm showing this is that when we set an account up on Clinical Skills for you, you would have received an email. An email would look something like this. Unless you're called Loretta McCarthy, it would have had a different name at the top. But basically this email contains a link for you to confirm your account on the system and then set a password. Now this link does expire after a short period, so you may find that when you click on it, if you haven't already done so, you might get a message saying something about you've ordered, the token is invalid or it's out of date. If that happens, I'm just going to set something up here. If that happens, there is a way of generating a new reset password. What you need to do, and I'll just show you on the screen here, is you need to go to clinicalskills.net. So I'll just bring it in here, clinicalskills.net. So that's just clinicalskills there.net, and click on log into my account. When you do that, click on the link didn't receive confirmation instructions. And when you click on that, it'll ask you to enter your email address, pop it in there. So that's your work email address, click submit, and you'll then be sent a new email with a link to click, which you then confirm your password, confirm the account and set the password, and then you can log in. Does that all make sense? As I say, if there's any problems logging in and you have problems, do contact us here, and we're quite happy to walk through, the problems, sort your password out and any other difficulties. But obviously we want to get you on the system and using it. Okay, so that's how you actually get onto the system. What I will do now is I'll give you a little demonstration and overview of what it looks like from your point of view when you're using it on a day-to-day basis. Now, just to check, is anyone on the system, anyone here today, going to be responsible for generating reports or adding and deleting users or anything like that?
I might be. I don't know if I'm head of care, so I may need to work with education team with that.
You might do. So I think we've got some training next Monday looking at for the team leaders, looking at the sort of super user functions. So I don't know if you're involved in that meeting, but what I'll do today is I'll go over the basic functions. If you do find that you do have to do the more advanced, the super user functions as we call them, let me know and we can make sure that you get some training on that. But as I say, we are doing a meeting, I think it's next Monday, where we're looking at the team leader aspects. And if you're in on that, then we'll be going over that side of it there. Is that okay? Brilliant. Okay, so when you log into Clinical Skills, which some of you have already done, I can see from the system, you come to your dashboard on the system. Now, the dashboard is composed of tiles on the left-hand side, and you've got 6 tiles here, and various links on the right-hand side. Now, just to cover what's on the right-hand side to start with, we've got more than 500 clinical guides on the system, and we're updating them all the time. Nearly 90% have been updated in the last 2 years, so we're always updating them. And what we do is, as we update them, we send a newsletter out, and we just put links to the guides that we've updated on the right-hand side here. So medication errors in children is one that we put a link up for last week. And there's a whole variety of things there covering a range of topics, some of which will be relevant to you, some of which won't. Under that, you have what we call organisation quick links. Now, your organisation has the ability to pin links to our clinical guides that it particularly wants you to access regularly. So these are like little bookmarks that your organisation can put, that Bluebell can put on your dashboard. So it's worth looking to see if there are any pinned areas there, pinned guides that do seem to be important. And then you also have the ability to pin links to guides to your own little area, your quick links. And any guides you pin here are ones just you'll see on your dashboard, but just mean you can jump straight across to a guide without having to search for it. Hopefully that'll make a little bit more sense as I show you the guides. But they're basically bookmarks just to let you go straight to a guide without having to go through all the tiles and searching for it. Looking at the dashboard here, just a few little things to mention. I'll just very briefly mention my profile, which if you go in there, it's got your name, email address and other bits and pieces. You do have the ability to turn on multi-factor authentication. And I don't know if this is something you've come across before, but it's well, a lot of websites have it where you put a password in, a username password, and then it asks you to put a number in from another app or something like that. Turn that on if you want. You don't have to. There's a link there with more information about MFA, multi-factor authentication. If you turn it on by accident, we can turn it off for you. If you don't need that, just leave it alone. But it's just there if you want that extra security on your account. Okay, so onto the main area, the main guides area. I'll start that first. So if I click in the guides, you come into the guides area and all our guides are divided up into sections. So we've got sections for adults, healthcare assistants, midwifery, etc., mental health. And obviously all our guides are in that sort of area. Now you've got the midwifery guides there. Obviously you're not doing midwifery, but you're probably dealing with babies and very young infants and things. So it may be there's some guides in there that are useful for you about just, medication doses and things like that, and also neonatal checks that might be of use to you. Within each section, there's a number of categories. So if I click on the adults tile, there's categories of guides, there's hygiene, observations, cardiac care, etc. And then you can click on these to see the individual guides within the category. So if I go into observations, I've got them listed down here, temperature, recording, assessing pulse, etc. You might find it easier to actually click on the See All Guides button here. And what that does is it just lists the guides down the page as text. So you haven't got all the tiles, and I think some people find it easier to see the guides laid out in this format. Again, they're divided by section, so you've got all healthcare professionals here, adults, and then by category, so you've got hygiene within the adult section there. You can search for guides on this page or the ones with the tiles just by using the search box here. So if I search for diabetes, for example, just click search, you'll see all the guides on the system that have something to do with diabetes. So they're mentioned in the stroke care guides as well, and also in the care certificate hydration guide. You can clear that search and just see the whole list by clearing the search there. So if we look at a particular guide, and one I tend to use is venipuncture, unless anyone's got any other suggestions or anything else they'd like to look at. If not, I'll just look at the venipuncture guides, because that's quite a sort of common one that people use. And if I search for the venipuncture guides, I'm going to have a look at the one which is venipuncture using a winged infusion device, which I presume is something that you would be doing at the hospice there.
No, it isn't actually. It isn't actually. We wouldn't be doing that really.
Okay, no, that's fine. Well, let's find something else then. So let's have a look at the guides. You completely ruined my demonstration there. I'm totally out of the flow now, so that's okay. What should we pick then? Should we go for something like just routine hand hygiene or nasogastric tube or something like that? I mean, that's quite a good general one. Really, all I'm trying to do here is give a sort of general feel for how the guides are laid out. So it doesn't matter tremendously exactly what guides I choose. So there we go. I recovered from that quite well, I thought. Okay, so these are the guides themselves. When you open a guide, they all open in a very similar way. They open up as a PDF document within a panel within your browser. Now, depending what browser you're using, it might look slightly different. I'm using Chrome here, but if you're using Edge or Firefox or Safari or whatever, it'll still open and you'll be able to view it correctly. Now, it's a PDF document, so you can actually select some of the text. You can blow it up, make it larger or smaller, or make it sort of just width like that. If you're feeling a little bit sleepy, you can turn it sideways and read it while you're lying down. So there's all sorts of things you can do with the guides just because it's a PDF. You can also download the guide. Download button in Chrome is over here on the right, or you can print the guide out, and you're quite welcome to do that as long as you don't share it outside Bluebell Wood Hospice and Bluebells, yeah, Bluebell wool, that's right. As long as you don't share it outside the hospice, or obviously sell it or use it in your own material, you know, for profit. We do say though that it's always best to come back to the guide itself, because we do update them regularly. So the danger is if you download a guide, print it out and then refer to it, you may find you're actually using an out-of-date version. So just looking at the guide here itself, as I say, they're all PDFs. As I say, they all start off with the title, the author of the guide, and all the guides are written by subject matter experts, usually senior nurses, people with experience in the field, and also often of teaching it. And this case, we've got Satu, who does quite a lot of work for us, who works in the Simulated Learning Centre over at Kingston University. The date it was updated, so this one was actually updated quite recently. This year, in fact. And then they all start off with a little bit of introductory text that tells you a little bit about the procedure, about the guide itself, and the importance of what we're talking about. Everything is referenced. So you see there's references all the way through here, and there is a references list I'll show you at the end. Once you've gone through the introductory screen, it goes through then a lot of illustrations, very clearly and step by step, showing how you should actually work with them, how you should go through hand hygiene in a clinical setting. So it's very practical things about removing jewellery, wearing appropriate clothing, don't wear gloves, you know, answering the phone and things like that. So stuff that, you know, that you need to be aware of if you're obviously washing your hands for a clinical setting. Different types of hand sanitizers. Let me just make that a little bit better. And skin care, moisturizing hand cream. Obviously, with a lot of hand washing, you can get problems with occupational dermatitis. So how to address that. And then once it's gone through the introductory area, it just goes through basic how to wash your hands. Palm to palm, palm to back of hands, and every sort of aspect of hand cleaning that you need to work through, including fingertips and things like that. It also mentions the area that most frequently missed. They've done experiments where they've covered hands in ultraviolet dye, and then they got people to wash their hands, and then they put them under ultraviolet light, and they see the areas that people most commonly miss. So these are the areas to concentrate on if you really want to get your hands clean. This guide also includes a hand hygiene audit tool as well, which might be useful in the clinical setting there. So that's the guides really. That, you know, they're designed to be pretty much, you know, what it says on the tin, be very practical step by step. You've got the visual illustrations there, supported by text as well, to help you sort of learn what you're meant to be doing there. Does that make sense? Great. And obviously you can have a look around yourself at all the different guides. Going under the guide, we've got a few other bits and pieces which might be helpful for you. We've got buttons here that cover the aim of the guide, the learning outcomes, how it maps to NMC standards. So in terms of revalidation, if you read the guide, you'll then be able to see how you could actually record that as part of your CPD activities. References. So there's a references list there with links you can click on to go to the original article. So you can go in a bit more depth there if you want to. We also include some key reading as well, which are the guides or the references that are particularly important if you want to go into it in a bit more depth. So that does give you the opportunity to do more research there. Author information is the same as the top of the guide. And then when it was last updated. And this one was originally written in 2009 and was last updated in April, so last month, where the author went through, reviewed it and made any changes according to sort of following updates to national guidance and things like that. Now, as I say, we do update the guides regularly. What we tend to have is a rolling system where, you know, every 2 to 3 years they'll be updated anyway. But if we do identify new national standards or changing clinical recommendations that come in, we will sort of update the guide and review it much sooner than that. And we have a clinical commissioning editor who's also does 1 day a week working as a nurse as well, who's continually looking for any recommendations or changes from NICE or from other organisations. We do always say, though, if you spot something in the guide that you think is out of date or is not quite appropriate or right, do contact us and let us know. Then we can check with the author. We can sort of follow that through and just make sure that we are following the agreed national standards. But we're always happy to get feedback from yourself and any other users. Kate?
I was just going to say, myself and Bree spotted like something had been updated, but part of the guide was saying slightly different information. So we emailed, and we were so impressed with the response. It was literally by the end of the day, they were like, yeah, thank you for pointing that out, and it had been amended and updated. It was really good.
Oh,
So
brilliant. Yeah, I think Maddie got back to you on that, didn't he? Yeah, no, she's very, very, very fast and very helpful in that. But yeah, it's great. I mean, because, you know, sometimes there are things, it's sometimes we get an organisation contact us and said, well, that doesn't seem right. That's not what we do. And we've done the research and we've looked and we said, well, actually, the guide follows the national guidelines. You need to look at your own procedures. But yeah, no, we're always happy to get feedback on that, you know, and that's the way we make sure everything is up to date. So if you see something, you know, by all means, let us know. If you're not sure, again, let us know. We can always, you know, reply in a polite way to say, yep, we're aware of that, or that's on date for the next update. Going back to the top of the guide, few bits and pieces that might help you as well. You have the ability to add what we call a personal note to the top of the guide. So you can pop a personal note on, and that can be anything that's going to help you when you come to this guide. So it might be just things like where the gloves are kept or anything like that, or, you know, don't speak to Kate before she's had a coffee because it can be a bit dodgy, or anything you want to put. Sorry, anything you want to put there. It's personal to you, but it should be sort of practical information there, really. The other thing you may see is what we call an organisation notes. Because our guides are written for a wide range of different organisations, you know, hospices, trusts, care homes, etc., it may be that some of the information in the guide or some of the equipment doesn't quite chime with exactly what you use in Bluebell Wood. So what your organisation can do is add a note to the top of the guide, super users can do this, just to clarify things like, you know, see our local infection policy, and it might include a link to the infection policy, or it might include other instructions about, you know, we use particular type of gloves or anything like that. So it's always worth looking to see if there's additional information there. Sometimes clinical skills will put an additional note at the top. If, for example, there's been some change in national standards and we're in the process of updating the guide, we might put a little note to the top to explain that. Rather than taking the guide down, we might put a note to say, we are reviewing this in the light of so-and-so policy or something like that. A few other little buttons that might help. If you're looking at the guide on an iPad or a smaller device, it might help to open the guide in a new tab. So if you click on that, it'll open up and you won't have all the rest of the furniture, all the other buttons. You'll just have the guide, and that works very well on iPads. And the next one, we've got an ability to jump across to our CPD area, which I'll explain a little bit later. All that information under the guide, the aims, the learning outcomes, the references, key reading, etc. If you click on the download all data button, it'll pull all that information together into one PDF, and then you can download that. So basically, if you wanted the references list down for your own research or whatever, you can download it there. You can see what assessments are associated with this guide, and we've got a lot of assessments on the system, and I'll show you what they look like in a moment. Right at the beginning, I mentioned these quick links, and what you can do is you can toggle that there, and that means that from your dashboard, whenever you go to your dashboard, sorry, I don't know why it's done that. Whenever you go to your dashboard, on the right hand side, you will now see in your quick links area, you will now see a link to the guide. So rather than having to search for it, you can just click and go straight back to the guide. So if you've got, you know, a few guides you use regularly, use that to pin them to the dashboard. Something else this guide also has is what we call a competency checklist. And if I click to get the guide checklist, what we have is basically a list of the very practical steps you need to perform the procedure adequately. And the idea of this is that you can use it to actually assess someone who is working through the process. So you get someone who's experienced in actually carrying out the procedure, so clinically sort of routine hand washing. You would then get them to observe the person doing the process, and then you would mark them off how they were doing on the actual the process there. So are they wearing appropriate clothing? Have they covered any cuts? So working through step by step how they're actually doing on the process. And this can be a very good way of, say, assessing practical competency. It also includes a couple of questions at the end as well, which you might want to ask the person being assessed as well. Now, at the moment, you have to download these and print them out, but we are just in the phase of a final testing stage of an online version of this, where you'll be able to take competency checklists and combine them with self-assessment, certification, online assessments to make whole clinical competencies. Now that's something we're going to be releasing probably next month. It will be an upgrade to the system, so there would be extra costs involved. But if you're interested in seeing what that looks like, we'll be doing some demonstrations of that sort of next month. But the idea is to allow you to build your own clinical competency checklists on the system and then incorporate them into actual complete clinical competencies for your own organisation. So that's something that's coming very soon. Any questions on that? Nope. Okay, so far. Right, so if I go back to the dashboard, sorry, back here, there's one final thing to show you for the guides, and that's the share link button. Now, if you want to share a link to this guide to someone else in the organisation, don't click on the top, don't copy that, because the URL at the top includes things like the role of the user within the organisation. Use the share link button, and then you'll be able to send that to someone in the organisation. They'll click on the link, they can log in, then they can see the guide you've sent a link to. So if you're making a document up and including links in it, for example, make sure you use the share link button. So that's the guides themselves. Any questions on that before I move on? Nope. Hopefully it's fairly, self-evident what they do. So if I go back to the dashboard, and you can do that either by clicking on the dashboard button here, or you can always use the breadcrumb area here to actually navigate back to particular sections. So I'm going to go back to the dashboard. And the next area we're going to have a look at is assessments. So we've got a number of assessments on the system. And if I go into the assessments, we come to two sub areas. We've got what we call standard assessments, and these are ones that we built at Clinical Skills, and they're available to a wide range of organisations. But you also have the ability to make your own local assessments on the system. So Bluebell could actually make your own local assessments on the system that are only available to your own users. They can include some of the questions that we've already created in our standard assessments. They can create brand new questions, or you can use a mixture of them. So there's a lot of power there in building local assessments. Now, if you do get involved in doing that, or you're asked to do that, do come back to us and we can give you additional training on how to actually build the assessments and implement them across your organisation. But a lot of places use that. You can set them up so they're recurring. So you might have an assessment on nasogastric tubes or hand washing or whatever that has to be retaken annually to keep that sort of to assess how your staff are doing on that particular standard. So I'm going to look at the standard assessments to start with, just to give you an idea of what the assessments look like. As I say, we've got a whole range of assessments on the system. You can have a look down through the tiles, or you can search down using the boxes at the top. Now, all our standard assessments are linked to the guides. So if you want to find an assessment based on a particular guide, you can search for it either by name, or you can search through by the section that contains the guide it's related to. So if I was looking at hand hygiene, for example, I go into adults. I think it's in there. Well, actually, maybe, sorry, I think it's in all healthcare professionals. Infection control measures, search there, and you would have hand hygiene would be included with within one of these assessments. So I could even search down further, and I could actually look specifically at the hand hygiene guide. So we've got two assessments here on infection control measures, which, as I say, will include reference to the hand washing guides. To start an assessment, you just click on the start tile. The assessment then opens up with an introductory screen that tells you how many questions, what guides it's related to, and there, as I said, it also includes the routine hand hygiene guide there. You can have a look at the guides before you take the assessment. So, for example, you might want to look at prevention of sharps injuries. So you can just jump straight across the guide. And as I said before, they're laid out in a very similar fashion. So the guide starts off with an introductory area and then lots of illustrations going through all the different aspects of prevention of sharps injuries. When you're happy that you've read all that, you can click the continue to question 1 button. Now, if you make a local assessment, you can put whatever you want here. You can put your links to your own local infection control policies or whatever, and whatever text you want as well. And you can still link to our own guides as well. So simply continue to question 1. The questions are listed down the left-hand side. Usually they're randomly chosen from a much larger bank of questions. So in this case, the infection control measures assessment will have questions on a whole range of guides covering infection control measures. So it'll take some questions from a guide from guides related to hand hygiene, some related to Sharp's injury, etc. And it'll take a random mixture of those and give you a complete assessment. Again, if you're making a local assessment, you can decide how many random questions, how many compulsory questions that you want. So basically, you can either jump directly to questions by using the panel on the left, or you can just work through them one at a time. So I'll answer a couple of questions here, and this is a multiple choice question. So use of an anti-slip solution is recommended when, well, surgery. Well, no, I'd say, where would you use that? MRSA possibly. So I'll just take a couple of answers there. The questions are, you've got multiple choice. You've got multiple choice where you have to select several answers, say 3 out of 5, for example. You've got true false questions. You've got medicine calculation questions, which will actually ask you to calculate the appropriate dosage and unit of a medication from the information you're given. So you might have information about, you know, how many tablets you have to give or what dose you have to give, and you've got to work that out. And you just work through the questions. You can jump them, skip them if you want, and just come back to them later. So I'll just go through to the end now. When you get to the end of the assessment, you can see all the answers you put. You can change the answers you put. You can see the questions you've missed, and you can go back and answer those questions that if you wanted to. When you're happy that you've put your best answers there, click submit my assessment, and straight away you'll get an indication of how you've done. So I got the first one wrong. In fact, I got the third one wrong as well. So I didn't do very well. But you can see how you've done. You can see the correct answers. Sometimes there'll be additional feedback as well. If you got something like a medicine calculation question, you might have additional feedback which shows you how the correct answer was achieved. So even if you've not got the answer correct, you can see how you'd actually work out what the correct dose was. And that applies to other question types as well. So does that make sense? That's okay there? Okay, brilliant. Once you've taken an assessment, you can view it in your My Performance area. So if you come into My Performance, you got a list of all the assessments you've taken on the system. And I've managed to fail quite a few recently. The reason being that I do it as a demo, so I do a few questions and then come out. But you can see all the assessments you've taken recently. You can search for them by name. You can search for just the ones you passed or failed. You can have a look at the answers you put by coming across to the right, the Actions button here, and you can retake them or look at the answers you put to the assessment. If you passed an assessment, and I'll just search for a past one, you can come across here to the Actions button and you can download a certificate to show you've actually passed it. So if I just quickly download that, put it somewhere sensible, and that will just give you a nice little certificate that shows you obviously your name. The name obviously will be Bluebell Wood there, what the assessment is and how you did. So that might be something you want to download for your own CPD files. So that's the My Performance area. Again, any questions on that? Nope. Okay, that's good. As I say, if you've got any questions later on, or when you actually come to start to use these areas, do contact us and we're happy to sort of go over this again. The final main area I'm going to mention is the CPD area. Now, this may be something that you'll find useful or not, but this is basically an area where you can record your CPD information following the various NMC templates. Now, this area is completely private to you. The super users, the organisation admin people in the organisation won't be able to see this. This is just private to you. And what it gives you is the opportunity to add a variety of record types, as I say, following the NMC templates. You can create NMC CPD records, reflective accounts, discussions, practice rated feedback and hours log templates as you want. And you can create as many of these different types of record as you want. And how it works is when you create one, and I've got one here I created earlier on infection control. When you create it, you'll see that it starts off with the usual NMC information at the top. It's got links to things like standards, proficiency, and also to areas where you can look up your the information you need in more detail. And then under the introductory material area, we have the ability to create a number of what we call log rows. And each row details one activity you've actually undertaken within the CPD topic. So this topic is infection control. So I've got details here of some online learning that I did where I just read some clinical skills guides. And you can see all the boxes here are also laid out to match the NMC required information. You can put the number of hours involved in the CPD activity, the number of participatory hours as well. And then on the second row, there was a course attendance. So again, more information there. And then finally, we had a ward infection control meeting, which comes under the area of infection control management. And you can add as many rows as you want over as long a period as you want. And some people do it by topic. Some people will have the whole year and just, record CPD information for 2026, for example. When you need to revalidate, what you can do is you can download this form. And if I click download and again, just save it somewhere quickly, it downloads already laid out in the appropriate CPD format. So you've got the details here, you've got the timings, you've got the total at the bottom here as well. So the idea is just to make that a little bit easier in terms of revalidation. Now, some people think this is great and they use it a lot. Some people, have got other systems or find it's other ways of doing it. So, but hopefully that makes life a little bit easier for you. And we've got the same setup for, as I say, for reflective accounts, for example. If I go into a reflective account here, it's laid out to follow the NMC format. So you put all the details you want in here and again, download it and it'll download as it would look, on the NMC template. So hopefully that makes sense. The other thing you can do as well is you can use these boxes at the top to search for the total number of hours over a certain time period. So we say, for example, you wanted to look, and I've just chosen 3 years here. You can pick a start date and a finish date. And what it'll do, it'll search all the log rows in your CPD records and give you a total for how many hours, total hours, and how many participatory hours you got in that range, as well as how many reflective accounts as well. So again, hopefully that can make it a little bit easier just to keep track of how you're doing with your revalidation hours. Any questions on that? I'd say that's entirely private to you. If you did move from Bluebell Wood onto another organisation that subscribes to clinical skills, and I can't see why you would ever want to do that, we can transfer your record across and your CPD data and all the assessment history would come across as well. So the idea is as you move between organisations, that can come across with you. So that's about it really. The only other thing to mention is we do have a help area that you can access here or from a little button at the top. So do go in there. There's a little introductory video. There's a range of links here to sub-pages that go over, how to use things like guides. So finding and using guides, for example, and there's some videos there. And there's also a help document and just other things to help you using the site, how to take assessments, how the different account roles work on the system. As I say, you'll be set up as users, but we also have manager and super user roles as well, which you might find if you're managing a team of people on the system, it might be more appropriate for you to be set up as a manager. So maybe you could speak to Bryony or myself about that if you feel that's appropriate. And if you're a manager of a team, you have ability to add users, take off users, change the content that people see, and also maybe build local assessments as well. And as I keep saying, if you do have any questions and you can't find the answer on the system, just send us an email at info@clinicalskills, which I think, where are we? info@clinicalskills.net. That's always monitored by 2 or 3 people. So we're able to get back to you fairly quickly if there's any problems and maybe arrange some more training or answer your questions specifically. I think that's about everything really. Any questions or anything else that sort of come up from there, or I stop sharing? I can always reshare if people have got anything they particularly want to say. Kate, yeah.
I was just going to say to everyone that Bree has already sort of gone through what guides everybody has access to. So all the guides that you can access have all been put sort of into role specific. So there shouldn't be anything on there that that isn't specific to your role, if that makes sense. And we're going to be doing some work sort of linking with the sort of assessments and linking in our existing like competency packages with the ones on here, so to make sure that it's specific to our environment really.
That's great. You can also turn off if there's any standard assessments that you don't feel are appropriate, you can turn those off as well. So if that's something you want to help, I can show you how to do that. So we may be doing it on the team leaders meeting next week, or if you want to look at that sooner, let me know. But you can turn, same with local assessments. If you build a local assessment, you can just assign it to a particular team or to particular individuals as well. So yeah. Okay, so any other questions, or did that make sense? Great. So if you get on the system, have a look around yourself. Any problems, let us know. And what I'll do is I'll transfer that video up on the recording up onto YouTube. I'll put it under an unlisted link, and then if I send it to you, Kate, and to Bri as well, would that work? And then and then you can obviously share it with the team as needed. So brilliant.
Yeah, thank you, Steve.
Okay, great. So enjoy the rest of your day then.
Thanks, Steve. That was really useful.
Brilliant. Glad you found it useful. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye then.
Bye.